Speaking of Lebanon, there is another evolution taking place in Lebanon, in that the economic crisis and the corruption that's taking place in the country has left many of its civilians of all sects feeling isolated and feeling disenfranchised by the not only the government that's in charge now, but the entire political system of Lebanon. And for those of you who don't know, Lebanon has a quota-based political system in that it tries to give representation, fair representation to its major sects. So that includes Sunni Muslims. The Prime Minister has to be a Sunni Muslim. To Maronite Christians, the President has to be a Maronite Christian, and to Shias as well. So it's a sectarian-based government, and the parties that people vote for usually depend on their sect. So the Sunnis of Lebanon will tend to vote for Saad Hariri's party, which is the Future Movement. Saad Hariri being the son of the late Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri and the former Prime Minister himself. The Maronites will tend to vote for the Free Patriotic Movement, which is led by Gebran Bassil. He's a Maronite himself and also the son-in-law of the Maronite president Michael Owen. And the Shias will vote for parties established by Hezbollah. Now, that's traditionally been the case, but the current economic woes of Lebanon is something that is not just affecting one sect or another. This is a situation which is affecting the entire population of Lebanon. Lebanon is due to pay $1.2 billion in eurobonds on March the 9th. It may risk defaulting on its debts. But at the same time, groups like Hezbollah have been pressuring the current government to not accept any help from groups like the IMF because it may undermine Hezbollah's influence and Iran's influence rather on Lebanon. Excuse me. Now, Saad Hariri, the former prime minister who resigned because of discontent with his leadership, he is actually right now seeing the situation, and he is trying to reinvent himself and reinvent his image as a voice for the people. Previously, his power sharing agreement between his future party and his Michael Owen, the president Michael Owen, that broke down. He resigned, and now he is voicing the concerns. He is doing his best to voice the concerns of the people of Lebanon against the entire political system. And he's also he withdrew his party's support for the new government that was established under the new Prime Minister Hassan Diab, and he has been heavily criticizing Gebran Bassil, the head of the Free Patriotic Movement. He's accused him of being a shadow president, which is trying to obliterate all other parties in the country, taking advantage of the fact, hitting on the fact that Gebran Bassil is actually the son-in-law of the actual president, Michael Owen. Now, the same way that the Sunnis and the Shias are feeling very disenfranchised by the current political situation in Lebanon, the Maronite people, the Maronite Church themselves, have even expressed their opposition to President Michael Owen, despite he himself being a Maronite. At the same time, Hezbollah is coming under pressure for looking after its own interest and putting perhaps even Iran's interest in Lebanon above the interests of the people. One example of that is that the coronavirus has been spreading in Lebanon. After Iran, Lebanon is the second most affected country by the coronavirus, and a lot of blame has been placed on that on the health minister of Lebanon, who has affiliations to Hezbollah, who has refused to halt the air traffic between Lebanon and Iran. Obviously, Iran has an outbreak of coronavirus. It's struggling to control it. It's becoming an epidemic in the country. And while other countries are actually putting controls and limitations on people coming from Iran into their countries, Lebanon, being that there are many Shias in Lebanon, Hezbollah has a strong voice in Lebanon, and Hezbollah is very closely aligned to Iran. Being the case, the Lebanese health minister actually not encouraging, not supporting a halt or a limitation or controls on flights coming from Iran has been fingered as the thing to blame for the outbreak of coronavirus in Lebanon itself. Now, the whole political situation being as it is, and people being discontent and calling for change and reform, it's quite a tense situation, because as much as the people may want to see a change in Lebanon, may want to see a reform of the political system, in reality it's going to be very difficult to achieve, because if any side in Lebanon was to be angered by any change that's taking place, it's a very delicate situation. There is a very delicate balance of power in Lebanon. Any change to that could lead to civil conflict, could lead to catastrophe. Now, one tactic that groups in Lebanon, particularly Hezbollah, may resort to in order to take people's attentions away from the corruption, to take people's attention away from the economic problems, is to actually provoke some kind of conflict, particularly with Israel in the south of Lebanon. Excuse me. Now, there is a very delicate truce between Israel and Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon that's been in place since the last conflict between Israel and Lebanon in 2006. Now, Israel is accusing Hezbollah of violating some terms in that truce, and I know that one particular Israeli general has come out and threatened to attack the south of Lebanon, to attack Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon if Hezbollah continues to do this. Now, if Israel was to do such a thing, if they were to attack Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon, that would actually give Hezbollah a lifeline. It will help them regain its image as a savior of Lebanon, the same image that it had when it was fighting Israel in the 80s, the same image it had when it was fighting Israel in 2006, where many people around the world were, including Sunni and Christian Lebanese people, were actually coming out and marching in support of Hezbollah, because they were seen as a defender of Lebanon, as a defender of the Lebanese people. So in order for Hezbollah to tap into that energy once again, they would have to provoke some kind of conflict with Israel. And in that case, if something like that was to happen, if there was to be another war with Israel, a lot of the economic problems that Lebanon is going through right now could be blamed on the conflict, could be blamed on Israel, and blame would be deflected away from Hezbollah and onto an outside actor.